Hey everybody, it's Chuck Dixon back for another round of questions about what I do for a living. And what I do for a living is I write comic books. We love them. We love those comics. Hey, let's get to the first question. Troy Sauer says, what action scenes in film have inspired your work? Well, the earliest action scenes I can remember are, are the old Popeye cartoons. When I was a kid, one of our local stations ran Popeye Theater every day, and I never missed it. Um, I was totally devoted to Popeye the Sailor Man and his eternal struggle with Bluto over the heart of olive oil. And the thing about the Fleischer cartoons in particular, and mostly, and supremely, and overall, any other cartoon version, was the multi-layered action scenes, and also the reliance on environment. They always took place in interesting places like buildings under construction or sinking ships or, dilapidated houses or factories or, they never just brawled in the middle of the street. And the environmental elements created complications and problems and humor in the fight, as well as precarious situations for Olive Oil to get herself into while the boys were ignoring her to punch each other's lights out. Um, and really, I didn't, strangely enough, see this kind of multi-layered action scene again um, until Sam Peckinpah. I went to see the film The Wild Bunch and was blown away by his ability to, obviously his abilities as a director, but even more so for a comic book person, his abilities as an editor to take a complex action scene and totally put you in the middle of it by juxtaposing cuts, multiple cuts between different parts of the scene, different parts of the action. And he would cut back and forth between one scene and another as you would see a character get struck and then cut to a different scene and then cut back to that same character falling and then cut back to some other scenes and then cut back to that character finally hitting the street in a cloud of dust. Things like that really impressed me and got me thinking more and more about how an action scene is structured. I mean, I think I was 15 when I saw this movie, maybe 14, and I really hadn't thought about fight scenes. And I just figured that, what did I know? They set up the cameras and a bunch of guys went at it. But here I'm realizing, well, my gosh, there's a lot more involved here. It's a lot more complex than I had first imagined. And this kind of led me a number of years later to look at the work of Buster Keaton. And Buster Keaton, silent film star, uh, he could set up these complex multi-layered action scenes um, and just set them up for perfection, and then they would work as suspenseful and often jaw-dropping. The man was one of the most incredible stuntmen ever to live, one of the most reckless stuntmen ever to live, and so they would be suspenseful and exciting, but they'd also be funny. I mean, he knew how to bring all of it at the same time, and really get you into the character and really get you relating to the character through these incredibly layered and textured action scenes. The guy was a genius. In later years, pretty much his heir is Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan, a huge devotee of Buster Keaton, and obviously a stuntman as well as actor, who's very concerned with stunts, very concerned with action and how to portray it, and new and different ways to portray it. And so I began looking at Jackie Chan films because they were so suited for comic book material, because Jackie Chan is practically superhuman. So if you're writing Batman or a character like that, getting involved in punch ups, you want to look at Jackie Chan. And the other great thing about Jackie Chan, that much like Popeye and much like Buster Keaton, the use of environment. I mean, Jackie didn't bring a ladder to this fight; he just found it. in the scene. And Jackie Chan movies would use all kinds of insane environmental hazards straight out of a Popeye cartoon. There's an incredible fight in a movie called Thunderbolt, and it's Jackie inside of a trailer that's being lifted by a crane, and the trailer is spinning around, and it's nuts, is what it is. Um, so you know, you can't do better than to look at this guy's stuff, particularly relating to comics. And of course, this led me to Hong Kong films as a genre, Hong Kong action films of the 80s and early 90s, which are perfect comic book action type things. And it led me into the subgenre of, like the girl fight movies, the girl action films, which for my money are often the best ones because, well, for me anyway, because I like writing strong female characters that aren't Mary Sue's, who have complications and difficulties, and also treating the female character as an underdog. It's always satisfying when the poor little girl who doesn't stand a chance against the big, strong, brawny men kicks all of their asses. I mean, who doesn't like seeing that? That's fun. And you know, these films in particular, particularly a series called Angel series, um, had all of these tremendous stunts involving cars and trucks and buildings. And, I would look to them a lot of the time for inspiration for comic scenes. And consequently, when a lot of people weren't exposed to Hong Kong action films, didn't know how to get them. All I did was hunt them down on Laserdisc and tape. And I just wanted to see as many of these things as I could because they really got the imagination going. And they were always, different and surprising and more enterprising and experimental in how they did action, mostly because they took chances that no American stunt team would take. And so I exposed a lot of my fellow creators to these movies and my editors as well. So everybody I worked with, particularly on Batman and Nightwing and things like that, were totally conversant and on board with my approach to action and what had inspired me. So there you go. Scott Heilman. Hey, Scott. In my favorite storyline by Ewan Graham, when Batman faces Captain Fear, why did the dynamic duo steal a boat? Where's Graham's bat boat? Well, Graham is a is a is a nautical cuss himself. He was raised in Florida, spent a lot of time at sea and on the inlets and things like that. So he was very anxious to introduce a bat boat to the series, and but both of us agreed that logistically a bat boat made no sense for Batman whatsoever, because he would need access to the sea from the Batcave. And where do you hide a boat if you don't? If you can't take it to the Batcave, back to the Batcave, where are you going to hide it? You can't have a boathouse. You can't be at the marina, and boats are easy to follow because they have to stay on the water. So, what kind of a boat would Batman have that could remain hidden from the public and hidden from those who would wish to do him harm? So, we never really ever had a bat boat, although we had plans for one. Post Cataclysm, when a lot of the topography of Gotham changed, and a lot of the interior structure of the Batcave changed as well as a result of the earthquake that shook Gotham. Um, we thought, well, hey, this is a great opportunity. Maybe a fissure opens up in the cave that leads down to some subterranean river that leads out to the river or leads out to Gotham Harbor. And, there would be an opening somewhere, but what kind of opening? And that's when Graham suggested that the new bat boat be a submersible, not the old, bat boat of the TV show floating around on the water, but it would be a submersible. And we didn't get to really introduce it until the final issue of Main Conquest, many, many years after our detective run. And so here is the Batman submersible that Graham had dreamt up all those years before, that would be able to simply emerge out of the surface of Gotham Harbor. I mean, how Batman is that? And you wouldn't be able to follow it back to his lair. He would just be able to appear anywhere on the water that he chose to come up. And that was our solution to the problem of how to give Batman a bat boat. Um, but we only ever got to do it this one time in the Bane maxi series that came out a couple of years ago. So there you go. That's all about the bat boat and why there wasn't one and why there is now. There you go. RB Probst, which of your creator-owned comics properties would you like to dust off and start publishing new stories of again? Well, there's a few. There's a few. Premier amongst them would be Iron Ghost. Iron Ghost is a series that I did with Flint Henry. Flint Henry he worked on the design end of it, and Sergio Cariello worked on the finished product. And it was a mini series. And what it's about is basically, your basic masked pulp type character like the Shadow or the Spider, except he operated in the Third Reich at the fall of World War II. And the hook to the series, other than just genre smashing, was that as you read the story, you did not know who the Iron Ghost was. You knew he was someone in the cast, but you didn't know which of the characters the Iron Ghost was. And it's also a murder mystery, and I'm pretty proud to say it's a murder mystery. It works pretty good. And of course, the murderer is the Iron Ghost, and the Iron Ghost is an anti-Nazi, and he's basically going around Berlin, which was not in the best of shape as the Russians were closing in and the Allies were bombing the living crap out of it. And he's taking vengeance for what we're not real sure, and all is revealed at the end. So it's all self-enclosed action mystery, pulp series. But it's you can still get it in trade paperback. Still think it's still available on Amazon, and it was a lot of fun to work on with my pals Flint and Sergio. Flint was providing a lot of the reference and a lot of the ideas. The pair of Lugers chambered for 45 ACP that Iron Ghost carries, his signature weapons. That's at Flint's suggestion. So we had a lot of fun on it, and I would like to return to it. If you've read the series, you'll go, well, how can you do that? Well, I figured out a way to do a sequel, and there's always prequels as well. The other property I'd love to return to someday, I returned to it once, is Winterworld. Winterworld is a series that I did in the 80s with Jorge Zafino. It's a pretty simple plot line. It's set, a generation or two in the future when the world is frozen over, the entire world. I never give a cause for why the world is frozen over. It's just that's the conceit of the series. And it's about Scully, a hard-bitten, world-weary, kind of burnout survivor, and Win, a girl he finds out on the ice, a young girl, and pretty much becomes like a combination Big Brother and Dad too, as they struggle to survive with their little buddy Rara, a precocious badger. And I got to do the series, obviously, at Eclipse, a sequel for Epic, both by Jorge Zafino, and then we got to return to the series with Butch Geis and Tomas Chiarello and a bunch of other terrific artists at IDW. But it's the Jorge work. Sorry, Butch. Sorry, Tomas. Sorry, Esteve. Sorry, everybody. But, and I think they'll agree with me. The signature work on this title will always belong to Jorge. He was the Imagineer. He was the innovator. He was the genius who envisioned all of this. And my inspiration for writing the series. When I saw his work, I thought, what can I come up with for a guy like this? And Winterworld was the answer. So, yeah, both of them, Iron Ghost, Winterworld, yeah, I'd like to return to and may return to someday. There's also a Winterworld novel, if you're interested. It's a prose novel written by me a number of years ago that tells basically Scully's origin story from the time he was a young man. Okay, next question. Jared Mitchell, the Reverend Jared. Always good to see you. For the Ask Chuck Dixon Rolodex of questions, apparently I will be seeing more questions from Jared. When it comes to the craft of comics, are there any innovations that you brought or contributed to the medium? Are storytelling innovations still possible today in the medium? Um, I guess they're possible. Uh, I can't claim any credit to coming up with anything new. Um, Basically, I'm conversant in the language of comics. I'm very conversant. It is a second language to me, and I understand it and I can utilize it. But of course, I'm working in the shadow of those who came before, and I know what works and I know what doesn't work. And you know, you have to think of things like your artist. Now, some of the artists I've worked with, I think, have certainly come up with innovative things. Um, Riffing off of my scripts. I can't point to any right this moment, but I'm always amazed at what artists come up to, what they bring to the table, the little tiny details that they think about. I mean, look at these panels from White Devil, Yellow Devil, written by Robert Kanigher and Alex Toth, drawn by Alex Toth. I will bet the house that Toth thought of that second panel. Whereas the commander is talking about American Marines pulling the gold teeth from the mouths of Japanese soldiers. This close up of this soldier basically running his tongue over his teeth. That's Toth. That's pure Toth. I'm willing to bet anything. Kanigher, as good as he was, he didn't come up with that. That's what I mean about bringing something to the party. Um, but I don't think that I myself have ever come up with any brand new storytelling innovations. But I do congratulate myself for the one thing in life that I can be sure of is that I understand comics. I understand how they work and how to use all of the innovations that have come before to try to tell the best story I can. Thanks for that question, Jared. Next one. Levi Sweeney, if you could write a DC villain team up involving any two DC villains, who would you pick and what would you write about and why? Well, I think you're asking who would Bane meet? Who would I team Bane up with? It's all about story. It's not like, oh, wouldn't it be cool? No, it's like, yeah, would it be interesting? And I think a story. I could probably do this all day with hundreds of combinations, but I think a story teaming Bane with Gorilla Grodd would be awesome. And of course, in the story, they would have some sort of common goal. Um, Boy, oh boy, Bane and Grodd in Africa fighting some kind of war against, I mean, I don't know who. And Bane comes on as a mercenary, but his real plan is to take over Gorilla City for something he wants. Boy, it writes itself. It writes itself. I'd love to do it. And of course, who wouldn't want to see Bane versus Grodd, that fight at the end of the story as they have a falling out? That's the beauty of writing villain team ups over hero team ups. Hero team ups in the Marvel tradition begin with the heroes fighting over a misunderstanding and then uniting for a common cause. Villains, you flip the script, the villains come together for their own venal, personal reasons, and then have a falling out, and they fight at the end. So it's flipped. Okay, to pick two characters I didn't create, how about Darkseid? Always loved the Kirby verse, and Catwoman. This one writes itself too. Darkseid often uses earthly, human, mortal um, allies, useful idiots, to do his bidding. Morgan Edge, Glorious Godfrey, people like that humans that he can push around and manipulate. And what if there was something? And because he doesn't want to reveal his hand on Earth all the time. Um, so what if there was something he wanted and he needed a master thief, and he hires Catwoman through some human or quasi-human agent to steal it for him? And of course, Catwoman's no dummy. She figures out halfway through who her client really is and has to figure out a way to, one, screw him over, and two, get the goods for herself. Because Selina's always looking at the bottom line, the profit motive. So yeah, I see. That's the thing. If you're going to team them up, you got to have a story. And the best ones when they team up the story's already there. It's in the conflict between the characters already. So there you go. Pretty cool, huh? If anybody wants me to talk about other villain team ups down the road, I'm certainly willing to because obviously I had fun doing that. All right. Archaven Comics at Patreon. This is the Chuck Dixon Slush Fund. You can go there and give me $1, $3, $5 a month, get goodies in return. And that money goes toward um, basically funding the art side of a lot of different comics projects for comics, print, digital, mobile devices, and all the rest. I got a half dozen projects I'm working on, and they're coming out, soon. 2 episodes of Go Monster Go, actually 3 have been completed. We're going to launch that as soon as 4 are done. I have another, big sci-fi action series called Something Big I'm working on with Frank Fosco, and we're going to wait again until we have 4 of those in the can before we launch. So, instead of crowdfunding all the rest of it, just get in the ground floor of the Dixonverse, basically. Uh, like I said, $1, $3, $5 a month, and it helps me, and you'll get cool stuff in return. So there you go. That's it. I will see you next time for Ask Chuck Dixon number 25, our 25th anniversary together. What should I get you? Anyway, I'll see you all down the road.